All right, my people, we're moving into English, my people. Resilience is the title in French. After all was lost is the title in English. All right, get the book, get the book. All right, my people. So we're gonna bring into the show Yvonne NSABIMANA, who is a sister to Alice NSABIMANA, and who is also who was participating in the writing of this book. If you can, yes, thank you. Welcome to the show, Yvonne NSABIMANA. So, which part of the you're not the one that she was always talking about climbing trees. No, that's not you. That's
I'm
not
one
you.
of them, yes, I'm one of them. First of all, thank you for inviting me and my sister Alice to be able to speak about the book After All Was Lost, Résilience in French. It's an honor, and we are really grateful for the time and the invitation.
Thank you. I appreciate the book. I appreciate the fact that you guys were capable of telling your own story, because it's an all Rwandans story, and it's also a story that a lot of people are fascinated about, and they always wanted to find out what happened. Because your father, who is the subject of the book, was a very important man. He was a major general in the army, and everybody loved him. So it's kind of interesting to see his story told by his children himself. So, like, what is the thing that you remember most about your father and that you miss most about him as a daughter?
Well, thank you. I do miss a lot of things about my father because I was almost 13 when he passed away, when he was killed, and I remember a lot of things. My most profound memories were when he would be taking us, his children, his family, to his village where he grew up, and he would take the time to show us on the road the places he would walk for miles, hours to go to school. He would take us to the villages and show us his family. He had that humble heart, and he will always say hi to people on the way. That is the first thing I really remember, and I miss very much his humility and his love for the people. And I can tell you many, many more, but that is really the greatest one.
Mm-hmm. So I know that you all of you have children, do your children ever ask you about, your history, your background? And when they ask you about your history, your background, are you now telling them, hey, go read the book, we put everything in the book? Or, like, what do you tell your children about your history? And when they ask you about your father, what do you tell them?
Well, I tell my children and my siblings, my nieces and nephews, when I tell them about the history of our father and our country, really in general, is that we are a resilient people. And we are also not just our family. I feel like the Rwandese people are resilient. When you look back where our country has been from, right, with the war and the genocide that happened, and looking how the country now is strong and has progressed, and how the people in the diaspora really have worked hard to be able to continue their lives, such as we did, our family. So our children, I tell them, yes, Rwanda has a beautiful culture. We have a beautiful language. And we also have, unfortunately, a heavy history that needs to be told and that needs to be known, including our own family's history. And when it comes to talk about my father, I really tell them the pieces of lessons that are mostly contained in our book, which really are the things we mostly remember also about his legacy.
Mm. All right. So I want to talk about this very happy day that you guys shared in the book, and it's about the day that your father was being recognized, and he received the highest military honor, la médaille d'officier de l'ordre national de la Légion d'honneur. And you guys on this picture, it's like it's you and Alice invited at the party. Nobody else is invited at the party. What's up with that?
Yeah, I remember that day. In fact, it was a school day, and they came and took us from school when it was time to go there, if I remember. Yeah, it was a beautiful day because this was in the midst of when the war had started, and also when chaos was still going on. There was a lot of insecurity in the country. Refugees internally displaced, right, from when the war started, October 1st, 1990. And so our father, though, very hopeful and very at peace, I would use that word. He was really proud, very happy to receive that medallion because our father dedicated his life to his country. As a military, as a public servant, it was really a big deal for him to serve the country in defending it, but also spreading the message of peace that he started in his own family by teaching us since a very young age that we need to be peaceful people, and also especially people who love others without discrimination of with the tribe, Tutsi, Hutu, Twa, even the color of the skin. So that day, it was a great accomplishment for him because I remember a couple weeks later, right before he died, one of the things he said to me and all of us on the table, a dinner table, because that would be where most of the conversations will happen. One thing he said that made me really, even later on now, be at peace. He said, I feel like I've done most of the things I've wanted to accomplish in this life in serving my country. I am on the highest rank in the military. I mean, he was only 49 when he died, and he was a general major at that time. And really, regardless the chaos that was going on, the insecurity and the uncertainty of how the power, right, will be shared between the rebellious army and the patriotic army, he was at peace, and he had been happy about the investment and the work he has done for his country as a public servant and as a military dignitary. Thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing. And another thing that's very interesting that you shared in the book is how he believed in the peace talks. He believed in the negotiations and everything that they were doing in the peace talks. And then he is talking and even joking about how he's going to be working with Kagame. Did he ever, like talk to you guys about that? And you can actually see that he is not a person who's going to negotiations, peace talks with a backup plan. He's a person who is believing in these negotiations. And then he's talking about how he's going to be working with Kagame. And then he even has like communication between from Kagame to your mother or something like that.
Mhm. Yeah, I remember clearly that day. Again, dinner table. He said how that day, in fact, he talked about it. He had a meeting with Kagame himself and their representatives of the RPF, with the army, right, that he was head of, and he had told to us that they were ready to share the power, as the treaties of peace was basically mandating the government of Rwanda to do that. So he was definitely prepared. And I remember asking him, "So, Dad, are you going to be sitting face to face in your office? Are you going to have two different offices in the same room?" I mean, myself, I was already visualizing that, because I remember also at that time, I actually had a little desk where I do my homework in Dad's office in Kiyovu. And so that was really the vision that came into my mind as he was talking about that. Really re-emphasizing that our father was someone who believed in humanity. He believed in what we call Ubuntu, the spirit of really accepting the other as you are. Yes, the RPF was the enemy at that moment, but also since he studied the army school, that really told them about also the enemy can be also someone you can somehow maybe stop the war with. You can negotiate with them. You can, yeah, he believed in all those things. He showed us a lot of movies too when we were kids about in history, a lot of different armies that will fight, and then at the end there was peace. So for us, it was really, as he was telling us how they will be sharing the power. It was something that was pretty logic, and nothing as a surprise there. So yeah.
Wow, very, very nice. So how was the process of writing this book? Um, do you guys agree on everything, or is this a list just doing all the work? Or did
No.
you guys take out the things that you disagree on? Is there some family beef that we don't know? Is there one of you in the family who is like, I don't support that book. I'm gonna write my own book. This is not how it happened, you know? Or like, how did the process of writing the book happen? Because you are many children and everyone is intelligent and everyone is grown, everybody has their own stories, their own opinion, and then to be able to
Yeah.
put it in a few hundreds of pages, just 300 pages almost. Like how was the whole process?
So this process started a long time ago, meaning all of us individually, we had books, journals where we've been writing our story. Alice is one of the people I remember who had always a journal, even when we were younger, which is not a surprise that we decided to have her be the voice of our family testimonies. So every one of us really brought the piece of puzzle to this book with our own testimony, our own basically the way we lived this story, this relationship with our father, the way we lived, what we went through in Rwanda. So some of our siblings, let me actually remind some of our people watching right now, not all of the siblings were in Rwanda. When the our father was assassinated on April 6th. Maurice and Denise, the oldest, they were in Europe attending college, and we were the youngest in Rwanda. So you can imagine that we all lived it differently. Not all of us were ready to write the book at the same time, too. However, some of us have had, as I said, journals or writing down. Myself, I have a little journal that I've been writing since we left Rwanda. But some others, it was in their head. Some others, it was, oh my goodness, I'm not ready to open that dark history of my life, kind of a thing, right? So we had to go through some healing process ourselves. There was a lot of grieving and a lot of being ready and being patient towards one another to do it until we got to the moment. Of course, what was also beautiful is that this is a project. As any project, you're always gonna have someone who's the person who is really leading that project and pushing everybody. Maybe some, like Fabrice, is someone who will always motivate all of us. Some others have strength in writing, like Alice. Some others have strength in inspiration, like myself. Some others have other elements. Maurice, Josiane, all of us really brought in our talents in order to make this happen. Disagreement, I would say it might have happened maybe in terms of, okay, like in a project, right? Or in a team. Okay, shall we do the release tomorrow? Shall we do who shall we have as a voice, and then we will vote on that. Really, it was in a respectful way that this process happened, but it was first of all healing for ourselves to be able to put all together our testimonies, because we were able to learn from one another too. It's like a puzzle, right? All the pieces, when they came together, and when we were rereading the book ourselves in French, it was amazing, because myself, there were things I was like, oh, so that's what happened during that moment. Because I was like, oh, okay, thank you so much. And Maurice and Denise, who were telling also their story back home, back in Europe, how they were living it. We were not realizing how traumatizing as well it would have been, because you would think, oh, yeah, they were in Europe, they were fine. But yeah, we all have been touched in a way. And on a larger scale, it actually shows how Rwandese people, we all have a different perspective of this tragedy that happened in Rwanda, right? And so imagine the beauty of all of us one day sitting and being able to share how we lived it. And that process is very healing and empowering and peaceful, hopefully a model for our society of Rwanda.
Very, very interesting. And then, besides your family being so touched by the tragedy that touched so many Rwandans, I've also read in this other book that has been written by a lot of Rwandans who have testified. And I read some stories. For example, the story of Eric Maniriho, who talks about his tragedy and how he was targeted, and how his family got killed, and his grandmother, and he sort of related to you guys. And then I could see the link. Not only did you guys live the tragedy that you lived, but also in other testimonies, we see members of your family being targeted just for being part of your family. How do you guys feel about that? This idea that, on top of having an important father who was assassinated, but also like the greater family, the larger family is also targeted, and then other people who are not your direct immediate family are also targeted just because of that. What do you say to that, and how do you feel about that?
It's really interesting you bring that up, because personally speaking about the different stages I've been through, when I heard the news when they were assassinated, so my dad's sisters, their family, a lot of people, right, related to my father who were assassinated around 1996, 1997, right? At that moment, I was confused. I was very sad. Obviously, I was very I felt like it was really a country that, yes, we are moving forward, but also, what is the point of killing human beings? Um, we already had lost a lot of people in 1994 in the genocide against the Tutsis. We already had lost a lot of people when the war started October 1st, with the Hutus being assassinated. I mean, until when? That's the first question that I will ask. I ask myself then. That I'm still asking myself almost 30 years later. When, as humans, fellow Rwandese people, we are going to understand that blood is blood, that we all should be treated equally. So yes, it still is a dark page of our family, and hopefully one day we'll be able to give them kubaherekeza n'icyubahiro nk'uko bavuga mu Kinyarwanda.
Mm-hmm.
But it doesn't mean that we should stay also in that mental state. And that's a message I'm putting out there for all my Rwandese fellow brothers and sisters. We've been lucky, all of us, Tutsi, Hutu, Twa, we've been all lucky if we're still alive. Let's do something meaningful to build peace and bring hope to our future generations. And it's up to us. So we can choose either to live in the past and always complaining and crying about our deceased people. It's hard to understand maybe what I'm trying to say to people who are still in that dark moment of so there's a psychiatrist named Kubler-Ross who spoke about the 5 stages of grief. And I feel like personally, everyone, these persons should think about where are they on those 5 steps. He said the 5 steps are denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. I know a lot of brothers and sisters who are Rwandese who are still in the denial, anger, bargaining, and depression, and who have not come to a place where they are okay accepting everything that happened so they can build a new life. So for us, this book, that's what it brings. It shows how we, as the children of someone who was a dignitary in a country, right, that he was killed and his family was killed, but are we gonna decide to stay in that denial and hatred and all those different dark uh, energies, or are we willing to move forward and create a better future for ourselves and for our children? So that's what we are bringing in this book. That's the message we are bringing to our Rwandese brothers and sisters, but also to the really people in the world who are going to tragedies. So it's a choice. It's a choice. And the one we chose is to accept and to look for a bright future with the best we can.
I like that. This is like how they say, like, it's not so much what happens to you, it's also how you react to what happens to you and how you decide to move forward. And
Exactly.
this is like this title of yours in English is interesting because it says, after all was lost, then it kind of actually completes each other with resilience, because people are like, okay, after all was lost, what happened? Then we needed resilience to keep living, to keep going on. So
Exactly.
I think that the title completes each other. The French and the English title, they kind of complete each other. Resilience is what is what you have, what you did after all was lost.
It's that
Resilience.
energy and that strength that kept us carry, that really helped us to keep moving and to keep going and to accept that dark page of our history, yes, has happened, but we can do something better about it in the future. That doesn't mean we forget our family, we forget our father, we forget our aunties and uncles that we loved very much, and we remember them vividly in our mind because, as I told you, our father used to take us to the village almost every weekend. And I'm also, my philosophy can be maybe also very different from many people because I'm also a Christian and someone who believe in the life um, after death, and I believe in what we can do to make life better too for those people who deceased. So it's a philosophy, but bavuga ngo mu Rwanda ngo Imana ngo yirirwaga ahandi igataha i Rwanda, donc turi abantu bemera kandi bizera yuko Imana idukunda kandi ishobora kudufasha mu byo ducamo byose. So resilience, kwihangana, as we say in Kinyarwanda, it's that strength that's gonna help us overcome personally as individuals and also as a nation and also as the people in the world who go through tragedies.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for sharing, and thank you so much for wanting to inspire everyone with your resilience. Let's remind people that you're going to have an event in Montreal on Saturday, September 16th. So, are you going to be there, or who else is going to be there so that people can come and greet you? And then you're going to be selling books and signing books. And are you going to have both the English and the French version in Montreal?
Yes, we will have both versions, and also we delegated 2 of our siblings to go, which will be Alice and Maurice.
Oh, because their names be rhyming, Alice and Maurice.
Yeah, there's that. And also because we all have responsibilities and families and businesses and different things going on in our lives that sometimes it's not as easy to just make it happen. So, but we
Uh,
believe in the capacity of carrying the message and really yeah, being there to represent all of us.
Absolutely. So, is there anything that you want to say that you haven't said in English before we move in Kinyarwanda, so we can talk a little bit in Kinyarwanda, and we're gonna bring Alice back in the show and talk just a little bit in Kinyarwanda as well. Is there something that you want to share with the audience that you haven't shared in briefly before we move into Kinyarwanda?
Really get the book and get inspired. This book is really with a motive to bring a message of love, peace, forgiveness, and resilience for victims of war and other disasters in the world. And I would also like to thank our mother, who has been our pillar since our father passed, and she's been there for us, and she's been a great example for us. And I would like to thank you as well, Louise, for inviting us. And we are looking for other opportunities, really, to share this message. Um, we are humans. We all have the same blood. I am because you are. I am because we are. That's really the core message, the core philosophy in this book of Ubuntu, of humanity, and acknowledging each person that they have a voice, they have the right to exist, and they have a purpose to contribute in this world. So thank you so much for having us.
Thank you for your contribution. All right, my people, we're gonna move into Kinyarwanda. Tugeze mu Kinyarwanda, mufite ibibazo, iki gitabo mwarakiguze, niba mutarakigura mugomba kukigura, my people. Resilience after all was lost. And then cyanditswe na Alice Nsabimana, acyandikira umuryango wa Nsabimana wose. My people, stay tuned mu Kinyarwanda. Alice Nsabimana is still here, and Yvonne Nsabimana is here. You can ask some questions. We're going to keep talking about resilience. And then we're going to find a word for resilience in Kinyarwanda as well. Ese wa mugani resilience mu Kinyarwanda ni ngwiki? Turi kumwe, my people. La famille Nsabimana, thank you so much for writing and telling your own story. Making the noise. Make some noise.